This studio is filled with lots of color. Everything is so vibrant, but there's lots of love in this studio, isn't there, Alice?
Absolutely. That's the only thing I work with.
We're here in Burbank, California to celebrate the life, legacy, and body of work of Alice Asmar. She's an extraordinary, internationally acclaimed and renowned visual artist, as well as writer and art educator, somebody who's inspired young minds for decades. She is somebody who loves life. She's passionate, she's enthusiastic. She believes in living the life experience. She's also very spiritual as well, and you can see that reflected in so much of her work. She says prayer is painting. Painting is prayer. Also for her, painting is like breathing because it gives her such life. So we're here to celebrate the legacy of the extraordinary Alice Asmar. You're somebody who feels as though you are sort of a facilitator, you're a conduit. You are being inspired by something when you paint these gorgeous pieces of work. You are being inspired by something greater than yourself, right? Tell us about that.
Yes, I believe in God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and I pray to them and ask them to fill me with an inspiration that will inspire others. And I feel that the only way I can inspire others is to be inspired by the great creators that put us on this planet.
Early on, you were noticed as a child prodigy, especially when it came to creating these beautiful pieces of visual art. Tell us, what was the first essence of inspiration for you? Was it your parents? Where did that inspiration come?
Yes, because I was tracing little designs on the floor, on the carpeting, and my mother noticed, and she gave me paper and crayons, and I started drawing, and I was drawing everything. I was drawing people, I was drawing roosters, I loved animals, and I was drawing like little cats. I even tried to put the cat in a little buggy because my parents had a Ma and Pa grocery store, and I remember growing up in the Depression era when people felt that money was tight, and I guess it was for some. But if you read Getty's book, he says there's no such thing except in your brain. He made his best money in the Depression and all that kind of thing. So my parents, anyway, were generous with giving millions of sandwiches to people that came to their store. I don't know how much money they were making, but they were very giving, generous, wonderful people, and Mom was generous with the crayons and the paper, and that's when I started painting at the age of 2.
What were some of the first things that you painted with crayons?
Well, people and animals and buildings and everything that I saw. I mean, it was my vocabulary in visuals instead of in words. My parents were very giving in the sense of they wanted me to be my own person. They said, you're in this country where there's a lot more opportunities than the country that we left, and we want you to make something of yourself. Do well in school. So I got straight A's in school. I was good academically all the way through to the master's degree, and it was easy for me. And so I helped the teachers by doing big drawings in their classrooms when they wanted to teach children geography, and they wanted to have a big drawing of South America or Europe or whatever, and I would help them. And they would take me out of class because they knew I was doing well academically, because they didn't want to deprive children from learning. That was against their rules. And the art teacher was wonderful. Oh, she gave me transparent paper and I painted what I consider my first murals. Transparent paper and watercolors, so you can imagine how crinkly it got. But it didn't matter. I was on the floor painting my first mural, and then they put it on the window. And they created a very interesting Christmas scene, because my first big mural was of the Madonna and the Christ child and the angels. And they put me on the table, photographed me, and put me on the front page of the Oregonian. So I knew that, and they had the children singing Christmas carols outside of my window.
What do you think inspired you to paint the Madonna and
God,
yeah,
Jesus.
You think even early on, you had a
early on,
a real
I had a feeling
that there was something,
greater than me that existed. Yeah.
Did a lot of things come to you naturally or almost effortlessly?
I felt everything was easy and fun.
Well, other kids might have struggled in certain areas, and for you, it just you get it quick.
And then they would choose me as room representative to represent them. You know, I was supposed to be the one that would make the decisions for the children that were less sure of themselves, you might say. And I loved all of them. I did drawings of them and gave them drawings, and they felt good around me because I felt good around them.
And then people were starting to really notice more and more this talent. You talk about high school, and then
because in high school I would enter contests also, and win awards and be shown with the other artists that were winning awards, and it became I was sure of myself by that time because it seemed like everything I entered I would get an award. The teachers wanted my mother to put me in private school because, you know, they said a girl like that that's academically way up there and, you know, does art and music and everything and athletics, you should have her in a private school. My mother said, no, thank you. I want my daughter to be democratic. I want her to get along with all the people in the world.
Exposed to all
no matter how different they are, I want my daughter to
religions,
be with everyone.
Perspectives,
yes.
Right.
And
that was a great decision your mother made.
Oh,
right?
She was smart.
Appreciation and understanding.
She wanted me to appreciate everybody and get along with everyone.
That you might not have if everything was so homogenized, perhaps.
That's right, homogenized.
So how has that's a great point there, how has that, even that early decision that your mother made, your mother with the crayons that she had for you, your mother now saying, I want you to have influences of all cultures and people, how has that also inspired your art?
Well, it makes me feel very open and happy because I don't feel like I'm rejected by anyone. I was always kind of questioning everything about everything, and it was, you might say it stemmed from my mother's very open, wonderful view of life. Yes. And my father, too.
Your father
he was a singer, and hundreds of people came to the house to hear him sing those great, wonderful Arabic songs. I don't know how he held his breath the way he did. But they have a thing about the way they sing. Instead of one straight sound, like an A, they would go to different sharps and flats and A and B and string out what I call that long line of melodic, lineal gorgeousness that you would hear in your ears. It was absolutely amazing. I feel that I was surrounded by the riches of life with my parents.
They showered you in love and attention and support.
Absolutely. But I was an only child, and I didn't like that. Early on, I had a hat because I said, well, I want a brother. And they said, the friends of my mom said, well, she'll have to go to the hospital, and then she'll, you know, come back with a little brother. And I said, oh. And so they said, and the hospital's going to cost a lot of money. So I got some little hat or cap or something and passed it around. I wanted money so I could send my mother to the hospital and she could get a little brother for me.
Would you say that this desire and passion you have for creating worlds through your work, expression, passion through your work, life, love through your work, influences of the divine through your work. Was any of this sort of your own playground, your own escapism? Did you escape early on as a child into this world of creativity and art and painting as a result of being an only child as well? You created sort of your own canvas in addition to having, family around as well?
Well, those are very good comments that you're making, and it makes me realize that, well, one of the important things I feel right now is that when the children would go home after we were playing and I'd be all alone, I would turn to my drawings, because then I could see the little animals that I would draw and remember how much fun it is, with the little feathers on the rooster, because I had 4 bantam roosters as pets when I was a child, and I love them dearly. And so when the children would go home and I would be alone, I would turn to drawing, because there's only so much communicating and enjoyment you can get from adults that are that much older than you are. As your parents are much older and you have a certain relationship, but it's not like what the kind of relationships you would have with the children or with a sister and brother, as I imagined a sister and brother would be, like the children who went home. Mm-hmm. So I turned to the drawing, and I drew a lot because I enjoyed it immensely. Yeah. I was thinking of it as I'm creating a world outside of myself that I love, and that world is different than I am. And I used to tell students, don't just think of me, and self-expression, but try to learn more about the external world and what it's doing to the way you think and feel.
It's a blending of elements of yourself combined with the expression of the world, right? And absorbing that and using elements of that in your work, which is a beautiful and often unique way to go about it, because people do focus on wanting to express their vision, what they see, what they, and there are some artists where that's beautiful to see things through their eyes, but you tend to incorporate everything. And that's one thing that it leads me to this question, because when we were chatting on the radio and when we went to the dinner the other night, you said something that was really interesting, because people often ask you, how do you describe, how do you define your visual art? And how do you categorize it? How do you label it? And you said pretty much it's like the entire vocabulary.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, when people say, what kind of work do you do? I say I do the whole vocabulary.
Right.
I do landscapes, I do seascapes, I do portraits of people, of animals, I do machinery. I even worked for Boeing and did drawings of the airplanes, and they wanted me to be an aeronautical engineer because I was doing so well, and they put me in the prime position at Boeing's and wanted me to really go on with it. And they paid me to learn engineering drafting, which I think was the best drawing class I ever had. It was wonderful. It was very precise and all that, but I liked it. I like precision. I like clarity. When I say whole vocabulary, I mean the whole vocabulary, visual vocabulary, because that would mean I have to learn new and different things sometimes, use different colors, explore into an area that I am not familiar with. And to me, that is exciting about learning about life, is that you don't just repeat yourself over and over again in a dull, kind of monotonous way. You go out, you branch out, you learn from something that's totally different than yourself, or a person that's different and has different ways of looking at the world. And to me, that is really living fully.
There's a couple of things that I noticed when doing the research for the interview that really stood out for me. A lot of things, actually. But for the purpose of this interview, you say, and I think they're beautiful things, for you, painting is like breathing, and painting is prayer.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if I would no longer paint, I would not be breathing. I would not be alive. I may be, still talking to people and walking and doing things, but from the standpoint of really feeling fully alive, I would feel the vibrancy would be gone. And prayer is automatic for me. I pray every minute, thanking God for giving me the abilities, and the more I thank Him, the more the abilities seem to increase and get better. And I think, well, you know, what used to take maybe 10 hours to paint takes 10 minutes now, and thank you, Lord. You know, I thank Him constantly because I feel that I am an expression of this great power that's within all of us. And that's why I can't help saying, and I've told this many times, publicly and to just a few people talking to them, I said, I want to contact all 8 billion people on the planet personally, but I know that this is kind of impossible from the time point of view, and also, you know, even trying to reach all of them in all the different countries. But maybe, just maybe, if God gives me enough ability, I can reach them through, we have radios now, we have tablets, we have you know, television, we have all kinds of means of communication so that we can talk to the others, and hopefully we can even see the crowds responding to us in the communication implements, I call them. And so I say, I really honestly want to reach these people. You know, if you want to reach people, you're happy. I feel so happy when I'm reaching out.
Do you feel also as you're painting that, you talk about healing, that a lot of what you do provides much more than just the visual stimulation, enjoyment of the setting, the colors, the nuances of the actual piece? You have a message in a way that goes deeper. You want people left with a sense of love and joy and solace and appreciation for the things that are around us. So what you're doing goes deeper and beyond just the physical beauty of your expertise and your work and your eye. You want each piece to have a depth to it that impacts them in ways greater than they could have ever imagined, right?
And that's why I pray, because I feel that I'm not the one that's going to put that inspiration and love and greatness and all the good feelings, etc., into it. It will be this marvelous creator, whatever you want to call him, or her, or whatever, power, energy, that I pray that will inspire me to the point that whatever I do with paint, canvas, paper, pencils, pastels, that they will be the result of higher thinking, higher consciousness. I think it's great that we have these things, the television,
digital
the tablets,
advancements and
technology and all the things that, you know, you try to talk to someone and they have a little rectangular thing at the ear and they're listening to somebody else. Well, it could be something else. It could be a tablet, it could be a computer, it could be, you know, anything, all kinds of intricate things that we have that separates us from life.
From each other, yeah.
And this is what I would want for the world, that it gets back to some of that togetherness.
Well, one thing I notice in this studio, which I think is extraordinary, is how natural and authentic it is. You don't see any of that in here. You don't see all of that technology in here. You see, you know, there's the desk, There are the brushes, there are the paints, there's the easel, the canvas, everything is just right here in an old school way, in a natural way. And that's the way you prefer to work, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because people have said, well, why don't you paint on the computer? No way. I want to feel the brush. I want to feel the hairs of the brush and the paint. I want this in my hands. I want it to be a complete contact. I'm not afraid of brushing up with that which is alive. Well, of course, they could say, well, the phone is alive, but it's not alive until you talk into it. I mean, of course, it has its little vibrations, and it is alive. Everything is alive on the planet. Even the tables are vibrating. Everything vibrates, but on a certain level. Not all are vibrating at a top, higher consciousness level. And the higher you go, it's like if you listen to Mozart's music, and a lot of college students do when they're studying for tests, because it raises their IQ 10 points. Higher consciousness is what will help our civilization overcome the destruction that so many seem to want to head toward.
So it sounds like the world needs a dose of Alice Asmar everywhere and Mozart piping through the streets. That may help it calm down a little, right? I think that is in order ASAP.
Well, thank
Those
you
two
for the
things and you've got it
compliment.
made.
I feel that color quite often can express a boldness, a strong statement that you believe fully and you wish others could maybe, if they don't believe the way you do, at least modify their beliefs so that they can be strong in their beliefs and be bold about it and not hesitant and hiding behind something that they don't fully endorse. And that way they can improve, I think, and we all can improve, then the relationship that we have with the great world we live in, because it's honest. It's the way I don't understand it now, but I will understand it better tomorrow, or however we look through these paths that we go through in trying to gain more understanding and more enjoyment of the world that we live in.
Let's talk about some of the work itself, because you have been highly rewarded, awarded, accolades galore. We could do a whole interview just on the amount of rewards, recognition, accolades. None of that is why you do, again, the work. It comes from the work. Letters from governors, even a letter we see on the wall from the legendary actor Vincent Price. I mean, it just comes from every source from around the world. What are some of those pieces that you have created that have been really noted by others tremendously?
Well, Jim, one of the important pieces that I've done that many people have responded to is called the clothesline. And that was when I was living in Santa Monica in a tiny apartment, which became my studio. And I actually took the great big piece of paper, which is 3 feet by 6 feet, out to the outdoors and started in with my indelible India inks making this drawing of Santa Monica. And at that time you could hear all of the voices of the people on the different rides. It was kind of like a Disneyland thing, and it was just marvelous. I mean, I was actually involved with life itself right there outside, and there was her clothesline. And it was, I thought, a universal statement of what so many people do. They hang their clothes on a clothesline, and you don't really see many paintings of that very universal thing that is done by so many people.
Life,
and so
right.
I felt good about it. And one of the things I was dealing with from the standpoint of technique in the art is that usually we think of things that are far away from us as being indistinct and fuzzy visually, and that which is close to us as being clear and sharp. And I was using a reversal of that idea, because everything in the distance, you know, the people riding on the different kinds of things like the dipper and things that would throw them upside down, and even the little bus on the streets that they had there in Venice. All of those things were super sharp and clear, and I made them sharp with my ink drawing. And then the clothesline, because the winds came up, the clothes would be blowing, so you couldn't really see them with clarity because they were blowing and they were in motion. And so I was dealing with a reversal of a common idea that everybody was making static, that everything in the distance is unclear and fuzzy, and that everything close up you can see clearly. And I was reversing it in my drawing. And so it was exciting for me to do that kind of thing, because I was dealing with art principles, and I was dealing with the human beings that do the washing of the clothes, and I was dealing with a lot of elements. And that's what's so important, and that's why it's not for me just self-expression. It's for me a learning experience. And I feel that I use my talent to learn more about people.
There's gifts
in life.
you bring to the table that are complemented by life's observations, life's experiences. Would you say that you are an observer of life?
Yes. I love to observe life and to be partaking of it at the same time that
that's
I'm making
important what you just said,
observations.
because there's a lot of people who observe it, comment on it, but they don't involve themselves in it or live in it.
That's the mistake from my point of view.
Right.
I think that to really observe it, you should be a part of it as well.
In addition to your wonderful role as an art educator and a visual artist, you're also a wonderful writer too. And you've penned this fantastic book, Dance to the Great Spirit. What was the source of inspiration for this book, and what was the process like writing this book? And go over what it's all about. I mean, I've been reading it, and it's absolutely incredible. Not just the visual content, but everything that goes along with it that is so empowering and inspiring. Tell us about this book, which I know is a labor of love for you.
Well, as you know, a friend took me to, in fact, he was my fiance for a while because he was killed, but he was from New Mexico. And he said, "Oh, Alice, you've got to go see those Indians in New Mexico. They are just really amazing." And I said, "Well, you always talk about them." He had been a minister, and he had ministered for some of the Indians who were poorly treated by other people of the Caucasian race, unfortunately. But I went down there, and he took me to see some of the dances that they do, and they were dancing as David would dance in the Old Testament, and singing and doing music, praising God. Only they called God the Great Spirit. And they would thank God for all of the food that He has given us, for the animals. And in fact, if they would kill an animal, it was either for food or clothing. They never killed as a sport to show an animal's head on their wall in their den or anything. That would be totally, totally anti-Indian. And I loved that. I loved the love that they had for life. And I thought, gee, these are great people. And they were here before the white people came, and I want to know more about them. So they, you know, love is contagious. They knew that I respected and loved them, and they told me things that they didn't tell others of my race because they trusted me, and I enjoyed knowing that. I enjoyed having the friendships with them and learning about their culture. And of course I painted them. Just like one of the paintings in there of David Tolman, the Navajo husband of Anacita Tolman. He was a Navajo and she was an Indian from one of the pueblos. So he said, you know, we have a song and music for everything we do. Like when the women are grinding corn, we have a corn grinding song.
Yeah.
We have a song for every activity that is done by us. So when you're painting, I'm going to be playing my drum and doing the painting of a picture.
I mean, this is extraordinary.
Isn't that wonderful?
There you see it all happening.
Oh, and
right there.
They wear the symbols of life, you know, the greenery and the feathers of the birds, and then the foxes behind the men representing the animal world. In other words, they're giving praise and thanks to the Great Spirit for all that they enjoy and use on the planet.
And artists' sacred journeys into American Indian ceremonies, paintings and text by Alice Asmar.
Yeah. Oh my God, I just love those people.
You've been doing this for so long, and it's in your DNA. It's a reflection of who you are, this work.
Yeah, it's
Ever
my
since
breathing.
It's your breathing, it's your prayer. Why does this work continue all these years later, bring you such fulfillment, satisfaction, and deep joy, Alice Asmar?
I don't know why it brings me that joy, but it does. And so I continue to do it. Even when I've had to work full-time, you know, as a professor or at the Boeing aircraft or wherever it was I was working, I would also have to be painting every day because it was, for me, breathing and being in touch with the great Creator, and therefore being in touch with life.
So you'll never stop.
At the fullest level. Never stop.
You'll keep going.
Can't stop.
You'll keep going.
Yeah. Even I feel I will be doing it when I leave the planet.
Beyond.
In my human body. I'll still be doing it.
For you, with the amount of work you have done, personally, professionally, just as an independent artist all these years, child prodigy to a renowned, beloved artist, why does this still continue to bring you such extraordinary joy? And when you are gone, as you say, you'll continue painting even beyond being here on Earth. What do you hope will be the lasting legacy via all of this creativity that you've created for all of us and the greater good of all of us?
Well, I've said this over and over to so many people that I want to leave a body of work that will be an inspiration to other human beings, inspire them to feel strong about themselves and their relationship to life and God and the higher consciousness that exists for all of us if we're willing to work with it. But I hope that my work, in some small way, will help them to realize what's within themselves, and I'm hoping my work will truly be inspirational to others. And it inspires me to do the work. So I keep on working because I'm inspired by the great Holy Spirit that exists for all of us, and I keep working as a result. Even if I say I'm tired and I don't want to work tonight, I get up and I start working.
You still do.
Because I love it, and it's telling me something about life that every moment it tells me something different. And so there's a never-ending wanting to discover more about this beauty of this. We call it life, but I don't know what it is. It's so magnificent, so big, so ununderstandable, but I want to be part of it.
And you certainly are, and continue to be, and you have been. And you also have inspired so many young minds, too, who've considered pursuing their dreams and their hopes and their desires in a beautiful way as an art educator as well, and teaching those who have wanted to do this kind of work as well. Alice Asmar, you're a joy to interview and a joy to personally know, and we thank you so very much for inviting us into your studio, to your life, to your home. And we hope we get a chance to explore more down the line. But this was really a wonderful conversation, and we hope somebody watching is inspired, even if it's just one person, by your words and this legacy of beautiful work that you've shared with all of us. Thank you for being with us, Alice. It was a true honor and a pleasure to meet you in person.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure and an honor for me to be here.
You're very welcome. So as you can see, Alice Asmar truly is the real deal, as authentic as they come. She expresses her love for life, joy, beauty, a celebration of cultures and people and nature through her extraordinary legacy and body of work. What a wonderful experience to come here to Burbank, California, to really see it all up close and personal. It is really beautiful, and the energy in here is breathtaking. She says that she's inspired by something larger than herself, a true sense of the divine, the true spiritual nature. That's what she's all about, and we're so blessed by the opportunity to come here to experience her and her work. To learn more about our special guest, Alice Asmar, visit her website, aliceasmarinternational.com. At the Alice Asmar Studios in Burbank, California, for Close Up Television, I'm Jim Masters.